Okay, so I am now live from Minnesota. And let's see if I can get, there we go. There is the video. Let's go ahead and turn the sound down and see if we can get a link. Yep, there we go. Copy that and post that up on Twitter real fast. Morning, everybody. Hey, Chris J. All right. My phone is right here on my keyboard on my laptop here, so you're going to see some 3D action. Okay, we are live for Critical Q&A. Let's see here. Good morning. And then post the link to that. And tweet that out. Let's see how that goes. Hey, New York City, my goodness. Yeah, the angle's a little interesting here because I've got my phone resting on my laptop. I didn't bring my little phone tripod, which I usually have my phone connected to. All right, but I've got the comments going here. France, well, hello. Yes, let's see if I can bring this down a little bit. You can see my hotel room here behind me. I wanted to get the phone mounted up a little bit higher, but didn't work out. Okay, yes, a fantastic podcast yesterday. That's the first thing I wanted to mention real fast for anybody who is just coming on here. Um, the podcast, the Sensibly Speaking podcast that I posted yesterday was a interview with Penny Misha, and it is I was not expecting the what ended up happening. I was going to get her story. She is the widow of a former Scientologist who, due to the phobia induction that Scientology instills in people about psychiatry and psychology, he did not get a proper and adequate and timely amount of treatment, and that ended up contributing to his untimely death. And and she tells the entire story, and we go over it in some detail, and it's quite moving. And I actually knew Brian, her ex-husband or former husband, and we talk about that in the course of the podcast. And it's anyway, it was quite a moving experience doing that because I did it with her live here. It wasn't a Skype interview. So if you haven't checked out my podcast from yesterday, I cannot recommend enough that you do so. I think you'll be happy that you did that. Okay, so let's see here. Scotland, Sonoma County, California, Michigan. My goodness. Upstate New York, Kansas City, just looking here. Fort Worth, Texas. Christchurch, New Zealand? Wow. Okay, well, good morning, everybody. Chicago, hi. All right, now I'm not going to be able to do a full hour today, so I want to jump right into it. So if you guys have questions for me for this morning, start firing them away at me right now. Again, I apologize on the angling on the video here. I've been trying to angle it back a little bit, but I'm sitting here in my hotel room in Minnesota, and anyway, didn't bring my little camera tripod to mount my phone on so that it would be a normal, usual angle like I usually have it. All right, Fredericksburg, Virginia, New Hampshire. All right, everybody. Um, oh, by the way, okay, any news on Shelley, Sandy asks. No, nothing new. There was a special that Vanity Fair Confidential did on TV, I think the ID network, which I watched the other night. And Barcelona, wow. And it wasn't particularly, it was good. It was interesting. The people who, Janice Grady was on there, Ron Miscavige Sr. was on there, Tony Ortega was on there. It was informative for people who don't know anything about Shelley or Shelley's situation. Also went into detail about Lisa McPherson, covered all the bases on that. So it was a good show as far as that goes, but for, folks like most of us who are more familiar with it, I think for the people who follow my channel, it wasn't particularly a whole lot of new news. Um, okay, let's see here. Jose Cabrera asks, "Is the Scientology network gonna last?" I clicked it on YouTube to see what kind of BS they were pushing, and clicked it again later in the day. It was playing a repeat of the same thing. That's right. They have about a 6-hour loop of videos, I think, that they're just recycling through. Um, I think the Scientology network is going to last because Scientology is paying for it and they have enough money to keep it going for quite some time, even if they didn't bring in any more money. But as I mentioned in the video that I made last week when I reviewed it on Tuesday of this last week, um, it's not, it's not really, I mean, it sort of is there to inform the general public. I don't mean that they don't have any idea that that's going to happen, or that they want people to tune in and watch it and hopefully come into the churches, and maybe some people will. But mainly it's for, the Scientologists, and the return on investment that Miscavige is expecting from the Scientology channel is that Scientologists will be all hot and bothered about it, and will, be super excited, and will then pay more money to do more with it, to get it out more, that sort of thing. But I've already gotten feedback from inside the church, and Scientologists might be on social media. Well, finally, it's amazing, it's wonderful, and maybe some of them will even think that. But there are other Scientologists right now thinking to themselves and saying out loud, "This isn't very good. This isn't what I thought it was going to be. I'm not impressed. This is just an infomercial." So, not everybody inside the church is so pleased and thrilled and happy about what they're seeing on Scientology TV. So we'll see, how they modify the programming, or what other episodes of Meet a Scientologist and Voices for Humanity and these things. We'll see what else they put up. But it looked to me like, even after a year of being overdue, because they had first originally announced that Scientology TV was going to come a year ago, or last summer, even after delaying it for a year, they're recycling old material, and looks like they rushed it out, is what it looks like to me, just to get something out there. And so we'll see, how this goes. All right. So enough about Scientology TV. Let's see what else you guys have been saying while I've been blabbing on about that. The anti-Scientology agenda. Yes, Cheechalker. Okay. And then there was another thing later here. Alonzo seems to be the new sock puppet for the ASC mantra, taking marching orders from Marty. It's so blatantly obvious that it's a Scientology operation. Yeah, as if any kind of criticism makes one anti-anything. Yeah, it's out there. Alonzo, Alan Stansfield, he's a blog. Marty Rathman posts videos. Scientology actually put together a mailing list of us critics and people out here who are working against Scientology, and or really how I really should describe it is people who are working to educate the public about the dangers and abuses of Scientology, because that's really what's going on here. Anyway, oh, hey, thanks, Jose. Got a super comment chat there. Thank you for that donation. That's a small operation. I really I check in to that stuff. I don't look at Marty's videos anymore. I am completely uninterested in anything the guy has to say, because he's just a Scientology shill. So why would I particularly be super interested in what he has to say, and as far as critical remarks about Leah or Mike, or the anti-Scientology cult, whatever that's supposed to mean. It's just an OSA operation, and I just ignore it. And I kind of recommend everybody else does too, because the more signal boost you give it, the more they feel like they're doing something. Whereas if they were just completely ignored, like 0 views on the videos, right? they would know that that operation is just going nowhere, and move on from that. Were you guys also pre-blocked from the Scientology TV Twitter account? Yes, we were. Scientology keeps a list of some kind of the Twitter accounts and that are that work against Scientology, and definitely pre-blocked us. I never had a chance to see Scientology TV on Twitter, which is fine. I have people send me screenshots, and it's nothing special. Their Twitter account is a joke. Uh, it's kind of it almost looks automated. It's so impersonal. Hey, Carol. Oh, hey, Cynthia. Thank you for that little donation there. Appreciate it. Let's see what else we got here. Hello from Germany, Tablet Queen. Um, oh, okay. What do I think? Actually, let me move up here. I don't want to miss anything. Um, Will I comment on the Scientology smile? I've noticed that many Scientologists share a tendency to smile broadly and frequently in conversation, way more than most folks. Is this part of the TRs? Eric S. asks. Um, no, it's not particularly part of the TRs, but it is part of the Scientology persona. Um, you know, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail about this, but when people get into a destructive cult, their personality changes. There's a cult personality that develops when a person is in a high control group. And the smiling that Scientologists do, I used to do it all the time. You're thinking you're putting on your best face. And it's a little creepy, right? I mean, if you were to see it in other people after you kind of come out of that persona. But the idea is to be warm and friendly, and as they put it in Scientology, to be in ARC. And yeah, they kind of do that on purpose, thinking that they're not being creepy. Um, they had layers to tell you what can be undone. Okay, Trish Robinson asks, do you believe that Denise slash Larry Brennan was right when she said that they had layered the tax exemption system so tightly it can never be undone? When they did the corporate cleanup? Um, as far as the tax, I wouldn't call it that they have a multi-layered tax exemption system, although I guess you could call it that with the corporate structure. Um, it's a pretty solid system, and it has worked so far. Here's what I'll say about it. So far, on legal review of Scientology's corporate status by the IRS and by court, activities that have happened, so far they have managed to keep people from, I think what they call penetrating the corporate veil, getting past all the wordage and verbiage and structure that they put forward. Because you have the Church of Scientology International, you have the Church of Spiritual Technology, you have the Religious Technology Center, this little triumvirate of corporations that run Scientology, and every other individual church is an individual corporation, and the whole system is laid out. Yeah, piercing the corporate veil. That's that, not penetrating. Sorry, my bad. That system so far has stood up to the scrutiny that it has been given. Yeah, no, it's all good, Chi. In legal activities that have happened so far. However, it's been thought that, and one of the reasons that it was thought that Monique Rathman's case was so important is because they were on their way to piercing that corporate veil, and also getting David Miscavige into deposition, even if it was only in written form. Also warrants Larry, not Wright, Wallersheim. The Wallersheim case also was rumored or thought to be on the edge of piercing the corporate veil. They were going to bring some documents in, they were going to bring some stuff in that was going to make Scientology very, very nervous. And Scientology, rather than let that happen, decided to settle with him. And it took years to get the millions that they owed him, but eventually Scientology paid that out. So it's not impenetrable, that corporate structure. and with good lawyering, and I think with a good strategy, that could eventually be exposed in a court. All right, let's see what else we got here. What do you think would be a good story for Aftermath 3 to cover? Well, I think Penny Mishaw's story would be amazing, the one that I just posted yesterday. I'm going to encourage Leah and company to take that on. And I think the RPF needs to be covered in detail. I think this is an opportunity and a time to do that. And I obviously, honestly, I would like to be part of that. Trish, you're welcome for that last answer. Because I think I might have something to contribute to that, but we'll see. They might have a whole different theme or idea. I haven't yet, spoken with Leo or Mike or anybody about, what they're looking at for season 3, but I do have some ideas on that. So we'll see what comes. Let's see here. Yeah, the TV channel sounds like the 700 Club. Yeah. Okay, no news on Shelley Miscavige. I answered that at the beginning. Tell us about CalMag, Hans Christian Schwartz asks. Well, CalMag is a drink that's given on the purification program. It's a mixture of calcium and magnesium. I do not know its medicinal benefits or validity at all. I've never really looked into CalMag specifically. When I did my video breakdown and deconstruction of the purification program, I talked about the sauna and the dangers of heat exhaustion and heat stroke. And I talked about the megavitamins, which are wholly unnecessary, and the dangers of mega volumes of niacin, because they get up to 5 grams of niacin at a shot. So when they're on that purification program, which is just not good for you. And, when you add it all together, 5 hours in a sauna, overheating, all of that, then you end up with a potentially lethal program. But the CalMag, I am really not qualified to say anything more about it medically than that it's a mixture of calcium and magnesium. Kimberly asks, wondering why the Scientology commercial during Super Bowl? Well, it is the Scientology commercial during the Super Bowl in areas where there is a Scientology org or church. And it's for Scientologists to get the idea that Scientology is being promoted to the whole wide world and give over more money. It also has an ancillary purpose of trying to bring people in, and I have yet to see one person walk into a church Scientology and say, I saw the Super Bowl commercial and I am curious. All right. Let's see. Excuse me. Mark Peters says Miscavige must have blown a gasket when season 3 was announced. I am positive he did. I am sure he is not happy about that. All right, let's see what else we got here. Could you... Teresa Gerald asks, could you try to explain how, if humans evolved from an ape-type creature, and if Scientology says they have been around even longer than they were, when did the jump into meat bags? Okay. You're going to find contrary information all throughout Scientology on this, so it's a little hard to answer this question because there's multiple answers to it, and they're a little detailed. Hubbard originally promoted the idea of evolution. In 1951-52, he wrote a book called History of Man, which he said was a cold-hearted, factual account of your last 50 trillion years or something. And he talked about the evolutionary line from a clam, a single-cell monocell, to a clam, to bivalve creatures, to coming up on land, and eventually to apes and man. Then, or much later, in the 1960s, Hubbard says that evolution is all an implant. It's not real, never happened. And it's all something that we were implanted with to believe. And then he comes out with OT3 and talks about how, all these people got brought here and annihilated, and then life, somehow came about here again, I guess through evolution or something. I don't know. He doesn't say. And then we got meat bodies again. So, who knows? Hubbard's a little hard to track on this whole thing because that is an example of some of the contrary nonsense he would throw around. One year saying this, the next year saying this, the next year saying this, and it just kind of goes round and round. These were the kind of things I used to just, really just do my nut in when I was in trying to break all this down and figure it out and understand it when I was, a Scientologist. You're welcome, Teresa. Okay. Yeah, I would really like to see Penny's story. Cynthia mentions here a great episode for the new season would be you and Penny. I would really like to get Penny's story out there. I think it's an important one. For the fact of showing just how much damage can happen to people who were never Scientologists and never wanted to be Scientologists, but were connected to Scientologists. Patricia Lee asks, do you know of any Scientologists who are libertarians? Yeah, when I was in, I did. Yeah, and Republicans and Democrats and independents and everything else. Let's see. Cynthia also asks, how is it for you to be back in Minnesota? Do you miss it or have PTSD? Neither. I'm fine here. I've just basically been in this hotel most of the time. I'm over in St. Louis Park. It was kind of interesting going back to the Mall of America right out when I landed here. We went to Mall of America, and I'd been there a few times. But we didn't go by the org. I have no interest in doing that or going around trying to find or harass Scientologists. I'm okay with it. What I don't like about Minnesota is how bloody cold it is here all the time. I don't miss that in any way. Nor do I miss the mosquitoes. All right. Is EST and Scientology offshoots of the same thing? Well, EST has elements of Scientology. This is a question from David Clark. EST has elements of Scientology in it. Warner Earhart borrowed some Scientology as well as other concepts, and that's Warner Earhart's bad, but L. Ron Hubbard borrowed almost everything in Scientology from one source or another and repackaged it and remarketed it. So it's really just one person after another, just taking these old ideas of ascendant masters and transcendent a belief system and putting them together in their own little quirky ways. And it's really just more of the same. It's interesting when you really study the history of destructive cults, the New Age movement. You get back into the things that Joe Zimhart talked about on my podcast like a year or two ago, and where this all comes from, and tracing it back to Madame Blavatsky and where she was ripping things off from. So it was it's an interesting thing, but there really isn't a whole lot new in EST or Scientology. Let's see here. What is the actual medical model today? I'm not sure. Ronald Fleming asks, Scientology tries to erase trauma. What is the actual medical model today? Reframing, not repressing, what? I'm actually not sure. I don't know how to answer that. Let's see. Yeah. Seeing the new e-meter on TV is really going to bring the masses in. Yeah, this TV channel really does give you an interesting insight into where Scientologists' heads are at, as to what they think people want to see or know about them. All right, let's see here. Oh, thank you, Mercedes. I am so smart. And I'm a bad girl. Okay, great. Or is that in reference to somebody else? I don't know. All right, let's see here. Okay, Dynamic Uno T asks, why doesn't the Church of Scientology spend most of their money on recruitment? Not everyone knows the truth about them. It seems like they focus more on draining current parishioners of money than finding new people. I think that the reason for that is because Miscavige is aware of Scientology's toxic PR value in the wide world at large. And I think he's sort of given up on the idea that they're going to clear the planet. In fact, I don't think Miscavige is a true believer. I think that he knows that Scientology is bullshit, and I think he is just kind of made a decision at some point, probably, I believe, during or after the Lisa McPherson debacle, I think he saw that this thing was not something that actually works. That's a total guess on my part, by the way. Nobody told me that, or I don't have any inside line into David Miscavige's head. This is just my supposition. But I think that when Lisa McPherson went down and that whole court case happened, and I think that's the closest David Miscavige has ever come to seeing actual jail time. I think it freaked him out, and I think he took a good hard look at what Scientology is doing, and I think he saw that auditing in various forms has some degree of danger and liability connected with it, and he went, we're going to change the model. And he then did exactly that. And he changed the model to ideal org fundraising. Let's make buildings, not people. I think that he then started focusing concentration on reading books and listening to L. Ron Hubbard's lectures more than they were pushing getting people up the bridge to clear and OT. They still push that, obviously, because it's their money makers. But if you look at the external promotion of Scientology, it changes, and I think that and the whole thrust of what Scientology, what direction it's going in and what's emphasized about it changed, and I think that was all done on purpose. And I think Miscavige, therefore, that's why I think and say that he's not really super interested in bringing in new people, because the only way that Scientology is ever going to clear their name, so to speak, is to directly address the criticism and complaints and problems that we X's have been talking about. And if they did that, and if they actually stepped up, took responsibility, admitted their mistakes, and ended the abusive behavior, then I wouldn't have a whole lot more to say about them, because they wouldn't be a destructive cult anymore. But it's not in the nature of destructive cults to do that, so I don't think that that's ever going to happen. All right, now I'm not going to be able to do a full hour this morning just because of the circumstances of my life here in Minnesota right now with this trip. So I'm going to try to take on a couple more questions, and then we're going to have to wrap it up here. So, okay, Canada Against Scientology asks, morning, I'm thinking about going to HowdyCon. What goes on? a lot of people talking to each other, talking about Scientology, talking about other things. A little sightseeing, and a little partying, and basically an overall good time. That's pretty much HowdyCon. It's kind of fun. I'm looking forward to it. Let's see here. Do you think? Okay, Cynthia also asks, do you think any new celebrities will leave? Also, do you think the case against Paul Haggis will go away now? Yes, I do believe more celebrities will leave, because, as Mark Headley is fond of saying, the EP, or end result, of Scientology is people leaving Scientology, and most people do. So and celebrities are people too. So yeah, I think we'll see more defections, and I don't think that Paul Haggis case has any merit, and I think it's going to fall apart. If it hasn't already, we're not even hearing anything about it anymore. Excuse me. Arnie Anderson asks, is there a hard sell going on in Eastern Europe or any other places in the world? I mean, if Scientology is just a scam, will it die out with Miscavige for the most part? Hard to say. Scientology is pretty big in Thailand. In Russia, it's got a fairly decent following, even independent Scientology. So yeah, sure, there's hard sell going on, and will it die out with Miscavige? It's impossible to say. We'll have to wait and see. Okay, Sonia asks, can people with food allergies, peanuts, celiac disease, etc., become Sea Org members? Is auditing supposed to handle it? Based on the food served, it doesn't seem that accommodations are possible. Yeah, people with food allergies are in the Sea Org, and they do get special diets. That does get arranged for people who have medically determined food allergies. It's always been a bother and a hassle. The galley hates it. The people who oversee it and administrate it hate it. It's difficult to administer to people with special diets, but it has been done. Um, and yes, auditing is supposed to eventually handle it. In fact, there is a special rundown Hubbard made called the Allergy Asthma Rundown, which is supposed to address spiritual aspects connected with people's allergies. And the idea being that if you do that rundown, hopefully you won't have allergies anymore. Well, I saw plenty of people who did that rundown and still had allergies. So, whatever. Okay, let's take a couple more. Okay, Robert Roberts asks, does the Citizens Commission on Human Rights know how insane their claim that psychiatrists are a global evil empire causing wars and bent on establishing a world government sounds to the public? No, they don't. They really, this is the thing about true believers and fanatics and zealots and religious fervor or fervor in general, is the person's whole worldview is encompassed by whatever that world that view is, whether it's a Hare Krishna or a Scientologist or uh, a Republican or a Democrat, or a Libertarian or whatever, and so that is their worldview. That all their biases and all of everything they see in the world filters through those beliefs, the lens of those beliefs, and so they don't see how crazy it sounds. When I used to believe in conspiracy theory and follow that sort of thing, I knew that other people didn't know what I knew, and I felt it was my job and mission to educate them. And if I could get it across to them, they would see things the way I see them. And so that's that's sort of the view there. Yeah, hoping the season 3 of Leah's show increases the pressure. Me too. Let's see here. Oh, thanks, Fred. Thanks for that contribution there. Yes, Nina says, I'm shocked that food allergies are accommodated. I'm sure people are made to feel like complete losers for causing trouble. They are. Remember that Scientology is all about victim blaming. And so they're, when you are causing trouble, so to speak, or inconveniencing people in the Sea Org, they definitely hear about it. But on the other hand, the people who have the allergies do know that it's for real, because they get, if they eat the wrong food, they're down and out for, a day, 2, 3, a week, whatever. And they know how real that is. So they fight for their right for a special diet anyway. All right. What will people in the Sea Org think about Miscavige wearing a 20,000-pound watch? Being pound as in monetary value. Tony Ortega posted an article yesterday where they showed a watch that David Miscavige owns that is quite expensive. And if Sea Org members even know about that, because they won't be reading about it on Tony Ortega's blog, they're going to say to themselves, he works so hard, he deserves it. He is the hardest working Scientologist in the world, the most dedicated Sea Org member in the world, and he deserves everything he gets. All right. Are traps gay? Alistair Wood asks. I have no idea what that question means. All right. Let's see here. Okay, we got trolls again. All right. All right, good. So, it's a 4chan thing. Okay, fine. Okay, this is going to be the last question, and I'm going to have to get going. What happens to a body thetan when it's removed in auditing? T. Feeney asks. Okay, this is actually a good question. The thousands or millions of body thetans that are all over a person's body, according to L. Ron Hubbard theory, are individually addressed in the auditing that's done at the highest levels of Scientology. And when an individual body thetan, and I'm just sort of randomly, bing, hey, the body thetan comes off. When they come out, it's supposed to be now more aware of its surroundings. It's sort of woken up It's no longer in this semi-conscious, unconscious state, and it is going to flitter off and go get another body and start the whole cycle of owning its own bodies because it's no longer in this, debilitated state. And a, there's an assumption kind of made in Scientology that it might even probably go off to become a Scientologist. That's the idea. So there you go. All right, folks. I know we barely just got started, and I could answer a ton more questions, but my time is not really my own on this trip here in Minnesota. I've got other things I got to get off and do, but I didn't want to stand you guys up, and I wanted to put some content out there for you and interact with you because I really do love doing these live Q&As, even when the trolls come along. You guys are awesome, and I will see you later. And we're going to